it's really a powerful feeling when you find your purpose, and in doing that purpose, it brings stability to your life.
Daniel Hearn of Hard Knox Talks. Thanks for joining me on Knockin Doorz Down. What is going on, brother?
Oh, I am just grateful to be here today. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit of my message, share a little of my story, and learn a little bit about yours along the way.
No, we were talking before we started. I was kind of facing a difficult decision I got to make, and you really threw that insight of, what I was saying was, the solution of drinking didn't even come to my head, didn't even think about it, but it's a tough thing in financial and decisions. But, you shared some really good insight on hardships, the inevitability of we're going to have them.
Yeah. And that's just a fact of life. Since I found a safer way to live, I can't escape it anymore. And finding that acceptance in hard stuff is going to come. I've been through enough of it now to know that on the other side of the hard things, whatever they are, there's always lessons, there's always growth, and there's always abundance in whatever capacity may present itself. So, when I see other people who have had a toxic relationship with substances come out of that and then say, man, I'm struggling, like that's the first thing I always go to is like, this is an opportunity. And I'm not saying that I go into my struggles like, oh yay, another stupid hard thing I have to face, like that's not how it is, but I do find the gratitude in knowing that, okay, I am on my feet enough to know that whatever this is, I can get through it on my feet.
And I think that's a hard concept for anyone, especially the newcomers to recovery. When you're talking to them about gratitude, it's hard to get them to shift the mindset to how am I thankful of this? I know a guy recently who kind of reached out. We were talking through the podcast and Messenger, and he's like, so a guy I used to shoot up dope with died. Where do I find the gratitude in that? And boy, it took me a while to respond to that, because it's a hard thing to find this gratitude thing. I don't care. Even when you're not an addict, it's hard to find it in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you want to talk about the creator, if you want to talk about God, whatever you choose to believe in. If I can start to think that I understand the plan for me here and why things happen, then I start to take a step back and I actually, that's the point where I want to call someone and be like, this is what I'm thinking. Because if I think I understand the master plan, then clearly I'm starting to think that I'm moving into that God type role again, So sometimes there isn't an answer that can be conceived as to why bad things happen.
Yeah. Well, and don't you find as well that sometimes we got to let things play out and it doesn't become evident right away. I mean, it could be years. Could be years. I mean, it was for both of us with, we never sat there and went, today I really want to get high or drunk. It's just, you fall into that. And once you come out of it, I wouldn't have thought I was here. And your story, I worked in media. You had nothing to do with media. Now you're doing an amazing.
I didn't know. A little bit of a story. Just let me, I don't want to call it flexing, but this is part of my story. And I believe there's hope in it. So when I started my project a year and a half ago, I went live February 12th, 2021 was my very first episode of Hard Knox Talks. I was at my dining room table with a laptop and a green sheet on the wall. And that's all I had. And in that time, I barely knew how to open a Word document, never mind run a streaming platform. I dove in. I didn't have the answers. And maybe this can go back to what we were talking about before. I didn't have the answers, but I moved forward and I made mistakes and things happened and some bad things got said and some episodes turned out really crappy with poor production quality and I was mad and it sucked And, like, I'm like saying to myself, oh, I hate that. I don't want to feel like this anymore. But I didn't want that desire to feel better immediately deter me from staying the course. And in that year and a half, through all of that hardship and maybe it's first world problems that I'm describing right now, and fair enough, say what you will, they were real struggles for me. And now I have this studio in my home, and I didn't go into debt for any of it. I put my focus on serving community. I put my focus on realizing that the power of the stories have the power to save lives, and they need to be treated as such. And staying in that mindset has brought abundance to my life, man. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. So let's jump into your background here, kind of let people give them some relevance. Yeah, you were an electrician?
A welder, journeyman welder. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so he couldn't be, not that there's not technology there, because it's a profession that I loved and sucked at when I tried it in my youth. My dad was a brilliant fabricator, but where for you then? Let's give some talk about childhood. It was your foyer into substance abuse, a trauma-based situation, and it doesn't necessarily, people misinterpret it has to be a huge T.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it took me a long time to understand the trauma of my childhood, because it wasn't a big T. There wasn't any really terrible things that happened, but I do remember, like, I don't believe that it was trauma that took me into substance use. I believe that I was born into this, whatever that was. And even if I wasn't born into this, my desire to escape myself preceded my drinking by a number of years. I remember asking my dad, like, oh, well, what does vodka taste like? And what is raw? I was fascinated with alcohol, like, at least 3 or 4 years before my first drink. So, and I didn't grow up in an active alcoholic home. My father is alcoholic, and my mom, she had her ride with substances herself. But by the time I came along, they had both found a safer way to live. So my alcoholism and my addiction, I don't believe it came from a traumatic event or a series of events or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And I don't recollect if you've talked with him yet, but Dr. Rob Kelly, who's been on here, he studied the brain, the addict brain, and he says us alcoholics, you're born
with $1 million mind.
Yeah, born with it. And not that my dad, who is primary substance that he was treated for, methamphetamines, and then also had a sex addiction as well. Which it's weird to trace back in the lineage of that in our family. But on my mom's side, alcoholism for sure, and drug addiction taking one of my uncle's lives. So I can relate to you, even though there was some trauma, no matter what, I always kind of felt a desire to escape. It was, it was like, sadly, so my first kind of escapism was stuff like Star Wars and Jaws and other movies. And then the second one that came along, because it was in my household, was hardcore pornography. And I've really had to go back and look at that work of that self-soothing through this form of escapism, because I was definitely, I don't know if that's an inherent thing with men on my dad's side of the family, but a fascination with women. And I don't mean that in a derogatory negative way, but almost like, wow, there's something more powerful than me. And, why does this catch my attention? And so these are things I really had to go back and confront as well, because people don't believe me when I go, yeah, I didn't really get like a buzz drinking until I was 22. I didn't drink in high school because my dad was off on the lunar lander doing his thing, and I felt mom needed some stability of some kind, and I just had friends that's not what we did, So it's just it's pretty crazy how it maturation of it didn't come till like late 20s.
Yeah, that's it. You mentioned women there. Women were a bone of, I don't know if a bone of contention is the right word. They were definitely a coping mechanism for me. I remember from a very young age, like as early as 14 years old, not feeling complete unless I was in a relationship. And at 14 years old, I mean, I wasn't getting in relationships. So that was another thing that seemed to precede the event. You know what I mean? Like with my alcoholism or with my addiction, substance use, whatever you choose to call it, I was looking for it well before it came along.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel complete until I had it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with me, with women. I felt like I was incomplete unless I had a woman in my life, unless I didn't feel validated or whatever that was at 14 years old, laying on my mom's couch, crying and relenting that I didn't have a girlfriend. And my mom's looking at me like, man, wait till you find one, then you'll know trouble.
I mirror your story.
Yeah.
You know, I remember my first big like heartbreak, you know, was just devastating. The lady and she cheated on me with one of my buddies. And oddly enough, that even became a pattern, almost as if I sought that out. I looked for validation, but I almost wanted to be invalidated at the same time to justify my story. So once like substances came in, and primary alcohol, it was off to the races. Having a relationship last more than a year was a miracle at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when it would end, you know, off we'd go. But
right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know where to go from there, but
I remember the having breakup celebrations. I split up with her. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll all meet at the bar.
Yeah.
It was an excuse to drink. And then 2 weeks later, back seeing the same person or something, you know, because that toxic love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never really knew any other way until I entered recovery. And you know how they say, you know, like if in my active addiction, I would, you know, if I wasn't with a woman, I was actively seeking out, you know, always seeking. And looking back now, I came to realize that like the healthy women that would, you know, that I would come across either online or whatever, I would only go after the ones that I thought were sick enough to be with me. You know, like if they didn't have some sort of twist or their own struggle or whatever, I was like, oh no. But if they had their own, I'd be like, oh yeah, she's sick enough, she'll be with me, you know, like, and that's something I didn't realize at the time, but looking back now, it's really obvious that I don't really even know what I was looking for, man. But
same.
But when I came into recovery, I tried that. I got 90 days in, and you know how they say, oh, wait a year and do, you know, and I'm like, they don't know me. And I tried getting into a relationship with someone that I met in the recovery community, and it did not end well. And the difference this time was that I had a little bit of recovery. And when I touched that hot stove, I recoiled. And I'm like, you know what? There might be something to this waiting a year thing. And I believe that was probably one of the better decisions that I made in early recovery was waiting and finding peace within myself, finding a way to be content with sitting here alone and being okay. And it took a long time. I think I stayed single for just about 2 years. And even when I did get into another relationship, it didn't feel right, even though this woman was a fantastic woman. And if you're watching, what's up? we're still good friends to this day, you know, like we went through our own struggles, but we still remained there for each other as best we can.
Yeah. So. No, I know what you mean, because for me, it was, I love presenting red flags and I love chasing red flags. It seemed almost as if I fixed that person and they are probably trying to like do the same. If they fix me, then everything's going to be fine. As if we can make someone fit into a mold. And it's just disingenuous love. I mean, love by definition, it has no restrictions to it. It has no judgment. And, you know, I was just, I think inherently wanting someone to fix me, almost mommy me to a certain extent. So I just gravitated towards those things. And, you know, not to call the other relationships toxic, because clearly I was bringing many toxic traits as well, without even knowing that, you know, the pornography, the molestation stuff affected me, as well as the drinking to numb that all out or have the quote unquote confidence that we believe we have when we're drinking, or using whatever it is. So for me, it was until, people have asked me about relapse as a part of recovery. And I go, no, it's a part of your addiction. And it really helped me after my last fall off, which February 15th of 2023 will be 2 years. Yeah, thank you, brother. It'll help me examine it helped me examine the fact I was just being a dry drunk and I wasn't working it. And once I started to really work the program, I know you're a 12-stepper, I am. It works for me, it works for you. It allowed me to start establishing boundaries, and all of a sudden, red flags, yellow flags, I ran away. It was like, nope. And I'm not going to present any. I started to establish really good, solid boundaries.
And yeah, that's interesting, because it's like I had to somehow get through the pain far enough to get a taste of the good life. You know, like once, now that's the fix. That's the fix, man. I'll tell you, a healthy and productive life. Like they say in the programs, and you call me a 12-stepper, and I can understand that. And I did, like, I was really into the program early on. I did 2 meetings a day, every day for a year. And, like, I worked the steps and I was a sponsor and I did all those things. But at some point I stopped being Dan the addict and started being Dan the human being who wants to live a fulfilling life. Like, I don't really go to meetings as much anymore, like maybe once a month, maybe once in 6 weeks or whatever. I still have friends that are, actively in the program and things like that. But it was once I found that, I don't think that I was meant to stay as heavily in the program as I was, like I had to step outside that and into the real world where it was kind of dangerous. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to go hang out at the trap. I mean, like, but like, I'm going to go outside of this safe little bubble that I've created.
Right.
And I'm going to, like, I'm going to drive the car that I've been building, and when I started doing that, that is when the doors of opportunity started presenting themselves. And it's been a wonderful ride, man. I'll tell you.
And I think it's necessary. And I'm glad that you bring that up. We the other night went, and a friend of mine who's an amazing speaker, someone you should definitely talk to at some point, Tony Hoffman. I mean, the dude's traveled back and forth across the United States, done thousands and thousands of speaking at high schools. And there was a lady there that we helped get her brother into his treatment facility. And she was talking to me about the sober living. And I was like, yeah, I think it's necessary for him because it'll help him build those skills, like you said, to get out of that bubble. It's like, okay, you got a safe retreat for some time. Maybe it's a year. Maybe you needed a year. Everybody's different. But you bring up that good point. Eventually, we got to get it back out there and thrive and know how to navigate and test these skills that we've developed.
And, I really realized that I had done that. And I knew that I had done that already. But recently I went and got my motorcycle learner's license. And I had this realization when the course was over. And some of the last remarks that the instructor said is now you have these skills. You're never going to get any better if you don't leave your driveway. He said, go out in traffic. Go out on the freeway, and don't ride with any other people until you've put at least a tank of gas through that machine. Because they're going to want to take you through their favorite places, and you're going to try and keep up, and maybe you're not ready to keep up to that yet. So, put a tank of gas through your machine before you go out into the world.
That's good advice. Yeah. For me, some of those steps were like, I'm a big concert goer, was doing a concert, and it was to see Kiss, one of my all-time favorite bands. And I telling we weren't boyfriend, girlfriend then, but she is now, and going, boy, I'm wondering if I'll even have fun
Mhm.
And I had the most fun I've ever had at a concert that I can remember, singing every song, dancing, having just as much of a good time, and actually remembering it this time than ever. But I had to get outside of that comfort zone. It was uncomfortable at first, but we have to test ourselves. We have
Mhm.
to. And if we need to retreat then at some point a little bit, that's okay too.
Back to the driveway for a minute.
Hard Knox Talks. So when in recovery, what made you decide, hey, I want to get on with people, tell my story, tell their story, and really just be of service in this way? What was the inspiration coming from? You were a fabricator.
Yeah, welder. When I thought of this show, and the name didn't come to me immediately, but it was COVID, and I was in a technical institute taking a safety certification course. I was going to be a safety guy, safety practitioner. And I don't know where the idea came from. I was just sitting there one day looking out my window with my laptop at my dining room table. And I just thought I should start a podcast. And I put it on Facebook, and a couple of my friends came back. Yeah, do it. I'll come on. So I did it. I was living on student loan at the time. So I called my mom up. I'm like, Mom, I need $600. I need some lights and some streaming software, some cheap streaming software. And she's like, what's a podcast? I'm like, well, I'm just learning that myself, really. So with that $600, I got StreamYard, very popular beginner or streaming platform that a lot of people use because it's really super easy to use. And I went live from my laptop. I'll never forget though. I think it was like a week before I'd already thought of this, and I was trying to think of a name. And I live close to the river here, and I was walking down by the river, and I had a little puppy. He's a big stinky dog now. He's around here somewhere, but at the time he was just this little fluff ball. And we're walking along the trails through the bush along the river, and I come to a little clearing, and the bush, it's a beautiful winter day. The steam's coming off the water, the sun is shining, and suddenly from nowhere, Hard Knox Talks. And I stopped, and it's funny because before Hard Knox Talks, I had a welding company called Hard Knox Welding.
Oh, darn.
And it didn't, so this has been coming for a lot longer than I realized. But when it happened, Hard Knox Talks, I stopped and I started to cry, and I'm looking around. I'll never forget. Like I have this in my mind. I remember the moment, and I just said, thank you. I kind of looked up a little bit, and I just said, thank you, because I felt like I had been given what I'm here to do. You have arrived. Here's the next thing. Yeah. So, and a few days later we went live, and the rest is history so far.
Yeah, no, I love it. Let me ask you this, through all the conversations you've had, and I've had quite a few where people have left so many nuggets of wisdom. Do you have any that just stick with you? Maybe not necessarily on a daily basis, but pop up and come back, and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you kind of put me on the spot there. There's been so many. Where do you start?
I'll throw an example. This guy, Mike Diamond, an interventionalist, does some different producing and TV shows and stuff. And it's something that I knew, but I never put it into simple terms. He said, unsuccessful people do the work when they feel like it. Successful people do the work no matter how they feel. And I was able to not only take that for myself and be like, shit, he's right. I still make a lot of excuses for myself. I still struggle with depression and anxiety, but this stuff's going to have to get done anyways. And I started to transform that and even use that with my kids, with some of their struggles. this lockdown stuff made it difficult to want to get back to work, and let alone for the youth to jump back into the education stream. So that's something that sticks with me every day that I use.
Now that you mention it, and we talked a little bit about Rob Kelly before, he has been on my show.
Okay.
And man, that guy is like a serenity bitch slap.
that's
how I always describe Rob, as that. Like whenever I get the opportunity, because it feels so like he gets in your face, but it's like, thank you for being here in my face with me. But he said something, and it sticks with me when I think of Dr. Rob. He says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And it's difficult in the situation that I'm in, and that you are as well. We want to help. We want to help the people that want to be helped. And it's hard to draw that boundary, where's the line between service and serenity? You know what I mean? And that's been a bit of a challenge for me, because people, they come to me and they want to be in my life. And I'm like, I wish you well. I want you to do well in your life, but the best I can do for you is to show you by leading by example. And because I can't have some people in my inner circle in the new safe place that I have found out here,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, all too well. That and I think that was for me again, that big lesson, like you said, we start with painful lessons occur, and what we're supposed to learn may not come to fruition for a while. But yeah, that protecting my peace at all costs. That there's, I can only help you to a certain extent, and how I give my time is up to me, and nobody's going to make me feel bad about that. That's helped me have gratitude for other people's time. Like as simple as us agreeing to sit and do this conversation. You're taking a chunk out of your day too to give it to us to be able to have this conversation. Let's share it on these platforms and hopefully help people. So there's a point where you got to go, where is the me area that I need to focus on? Where is that? And how do I go about that? And it's still a hard balance. I struggle with it. I still struggle with it,
I've never, it's hard to draw that boundary. I've had to do that a couple of times. And even recently, a guy was reaching back out to me, and I had sponsored him in the past, and it never ended well. Like it always ended with me, like with a threat of me being bear maced or something, like it never ended well. And he reached out to me again recently, and I want him to do good. I don't want to make I have no ill will, but I'm like, man, I don't think that we're a good fit. I think maybe you would be better served by someone who's walked more closely in your shoes. And I was expecting anger in response. I was expecting that, but I didn't receive it. I was met with understanding. And after that situation occurred and we parted ways, I felt as though my cup had been filled.
Yeah.
As though maybe in a way I did serve that person in saying, look, I'm not the best fit for you. Maybe that was of service to that person.
Yeah. And I think that's some of the misconceptions that we can have at times, or at least a chronic people pleaser, that setting our boundary will be a positive thing for all involved. That's like prime examples. Like, well, this could really hurt this person, or let's look at it another way. It could really help somebody.
And that goes back to the spot where I'm talking about when I think I understand Creator's plan, I'm in trouble. So like I'm not God. I don't know what the plan is, but I know what's right in my soul. And if I stay true to myself and to community, it always comes out on top.
Daniel, one of the things and that moved me when we did our talk with Higgy on his platform that we did live on Facebook, what you're both encouraging me to do. So I think I need to start moving some of this to doing more live, get some interaction. But you said a thing that really meant a lot to me was I want you to succeed too, which I wouldn't have done that prior to getting sober.
Oh, I know. And I still struggle. Like there are times where I have the thoughts, Like when I see one of my creator friends out there and my collaborators, they're doing something and it looks really good. And I'm like, uh-oh, like I start to get that feeling like, I don't know if I want to help them grow that. but I always got to take a step away from that. And how do I want to meter success? Do I want to meter success by the impact I leave in the community or by my mountain's taller than yours?
Right.
I don't want to be at the top of the mountain by myself. That sounds like a fucking lonely way to live, man.
Oh, it's a shit. We did that before.
We tried.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely, played God and thought that we could control and we're all knowing and, that didn't turn out well. But yeah, you're right. It is a really lonely thing. And I think the people, and I don't know about you, I've seen people fall off from doing this platform. And I've had people like, your partner's gone and things have changed. Why are you sticking with it? Because I still get a message like every episode thinks that made a difference. It's like, how can you give up on at least just one person? And I'm sure there's many more that maybe don't communicate it to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't really know what to say to that. It's really a powerful feeling when you find your purpose, and in doing that purpose, it brings stability to your life.
Yeah.
If you can, they say, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That's a lie, I think.
I agree.
I mean, maybe not a lie, but it's like, no, I work hard. Like I work really hard. There are nights where I'm up all night worrying. There are nights where I can't sleep because have you ever been so tired you can't sleep?
Yes.
So, but that purpose drives me forward, that knowing that I'm being of service to a community. And in that service, I'm finding abundance in my life. Like I have not found a better feeling than that yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny. I had a foyer of teaching on the high school level, and it came up like, Mr. LaChance, what do you think the purpose of life is? And even though I was still really getting to probably towards the rock bottom of my addiction, I said, work. It really is the work that you do and how it serves others and your family and everything else. It's what we're going to leave behind. I mean, it just is. Look at it, famous artists or philosophers or whatever, their work is what is still here and still influencing people in different ways. Mm-hmm.
Honor the struggle, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about going through hard times and finding gratitude. It's honor this, the true, and maybe my opinion of this will change. I didn't read this anywhere, but this is just my own thoughts, is that the gift is in the struggle. The gift is like, what is a sunset? Like, what is a sunset without the rain? How do we know what's good and what's bad in our lives if we don't go through the struggle and feel that at its most fundamental level?
Yeah.
Pain will be your most honest teacher of self.
Yeah. And a necessity, think from the time that we're born to throughout, pain pain is not a thing that we're going to be able to make go away. And we sure tried.
We did.
Made it even worse. And we created new pains that didn't have to exist in reality, but you grow, reaching maturity and all these things, puberty, it's painful mentally, emotionally, physically. You want to build your muscles. That's a painful process. You hit the gym, you snap down the fibers in your muscles. They build up bigger. There you go. That's how muscles grow. Life is just going to have pain. It's just taking a look at it. And what is this trying to show me? Is it pain where, for instance, I got a terrible neck and so I got to go get an MRI? Cool. Okay. Then that's what you got to do. Is it an emotional pain? Taking a look at why is that present? What is it about that is there? And how do we maybe discontinue the pattern of bringing that pain up over and over, which I was a master at.
And that reminds me of a saying. It goes in creators' hands. Our dark past can become our greatest asset. And, you know, I think about that often. And I think about, you know, if somebody were to ever come to me and say, I could take away all your pain, I could take away all your bad memories, I could take away all the bad things that happened to you, I would say no thanks. You know, I need that stuff. I need those memories. In fact, just this morning, Donna and I were sitting here talking about, I don't know, was it last night? In any case, we were talking, and she was talking about the time, the first time that she got off the street and she got on assistance. So she was on social assistance and she was pregnant and she had found some stability in her life, and she had a little apartment and she was doing the work to move through the things that she's been through. And she reflected on the time that she got her first check, and instead of going and blowing it on drugs, she went to this fancy little hole in the wall coffee shop right by her house, and she bought herself a nice cup of coffee. Where that same coffee shop, she used to sit outside at her worst and steal the Wi-Fi, you know, and not even be able to afford a cup of coffee. So it's those things. It's that cup of coffee means more when you've got the pain to remember what it was like not being able to have that. When you can feel that at the most fundamental level, that's not something that you can teach. You know, you see parents, and maybe not so much anymore, but it happens, walking down the street and they see an unhoused person sitting on the sidewalk, and they say to their kids, you stay in school or you're going to end up like that guy. You know, well, that guy has an education that, you know, you probably don't.
Yeah.
So that guy has the power to save lives.
Yeah. And probably wouldn't be strong enough to embrace that education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you've known them. I've known people that have been on the streets for 20 years and turned their life into something magical.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and it's that lived experience that made the growth possible. Yeah. And I'm not saying that y'all should go out and start smoking drugs and shit. Like, that's not.
Let's not do that.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that these dark experiences can be turned into a great asset, and that can lead you on a trajectory that you didn't see coming. I didn't see this coming, man. I didn't see anything coming. When I was in my active addiction, I would look forward in my future, and I would try to imagine what my life was going to look like, and all I saw was black. I didn't see anything.
Yeah. I figured death was imminent, and that's okay. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't being of service to anyone. I was probably more burdened than anything else. And yeah, we definitely crawl into that dark hole of self-loathing. And so it's good to be able to take this stuff and let it be a purpose, you know, maybe help someone never to go down this path. More ideal than anything.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think about that often. You know, my experiences gave me a very valuable asset, and I don't want people to have smooth sailing in their life. Mm-hmm. Because, like, what a waste of a life that would be if everything was just easy and you didn't have to fight, if you didn't have to slay those dragons and climb those mountains. Where would the gratitude be? Yeah. You know, what did you come skidding into the afterlife saying, look what I did, you know? So, but, you know, everybody has their own hardship. Now, hopefully somebody could hear our message and avoid they'll find their own hardship, but hopefully it's hardship that they choose to challenge themselves with, not something that takes them away from themselves.
Absolutely. I got a good sports analogy here. I'm a big Formula One fan. My favorite driver is Lewis Hamilton. You know, done amazing things. Of course, being the only black driver ever in Formula One, let alone the most winning ever. But like, the team's having a tough year, and people are like, you know, are you done? He's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is the same people that gave me all these cars, all this support to do all these things, these records that in the grand scheme of life, he's like, don't matter, but it's allowed me to help so many other people with the stuff that I care about beyond this sport. Why would I give up? Mm-hmm. These people have done so much. And so that was a really interesting lesson on gratitude. It's like, Yeah, it sucks. But again, first world problems. I'm still here in this thing. I still make a good living to do all this philanthropy. Why would I stop? Because you guys tell me I'm over the hill and I should, or I've lost my mojo. It's like, give me a fucking break, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. It's a lot of framing and how we think of it.
Yeah. A few months ago, I was in a lull. My analytics weren't good. My platform wasn't growing. My viewership wasn't that good. And someone came up to me and they said, well, maybe this had a shelf life. Maybe it's not going to work. And I'm like, oh no, it's going to work. Plan B sucks. I've seen Plan B. I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I've definitely had that same struggle. A guy commented on the Facebook, and I forget what it was. One of the short clips of an interview, you know, like, geez, how does it feel that no one's watching? So I just sent him a screenshot of the near 2 million views. I forget how many thousands of hours. And I go, I don't know. People are, buddy. Yeah,
I'll let you know if it ever happens.
Yeah, you're catching this clip like 2 hours after it came out. I don't know what to tell you, man. You know, but hey, I'm sure it helped one person, and that's what matters most.
Just flexing on Facebook.
Yeah, I was. Anyway, so people want to find out more about Hard Knox Talks, all the stuff you're doing. Lay it down for them before I jump into some random questions and ask you for the final thought.
Like where people can find me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're very easy to find. In fact, that's like my biggest purpose in life really is to be easy to find. So, we're on Facebook. We are on Instagram, TikTok. We're even on Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn. We have a website, www.hardknoxtalks.com. You can find us on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Anchor, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. So if you can't find us, that's not my fault.
And I'll make it extra easy because the links are in the podcast description.
And if that doesn't work, you email me, Daniel@hardknoxtalks.com.
Just click the link in the podcast. Just trust me, easiest way.
Easiest
way. And great website.
I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah. And great website. And Daniel does have some amazing inspirational merch up there. You know, I'm one of those guys. I like to wear the quotes and things. It just reminds me to be able to look down. So make sure you check out the store as well. Support Hard Knox Talks in that way. All right, good, sir. Random questions.
Let's go.
If they're to make a movie about you, who would you want? What actor to play you as an adult?
Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
I don't know.
It just worked because he would get it.
He would get it.
Yeah.
I think he would get it. We've all seen his mugshots.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember the speech where he's in the, not speech, but he's in the courtroom and telling the judge, he's like, I got a gun in my mouth and I like the taste of the metal, you know, and he was referencing, you know, his drug use. And I remember sharing that and somebody going, oh, he had a gun in his mouth. No. Watch the whole thing. He's talking about the relevance of what drug addiction is and how little sense it makes.
That's powerful.
But I could see it. I could see Robert Downey Jr. pulling you
not
off.
Not because he looks like me or anything like that, or even has the same mannerisms. It's just that's the only person that I could think of off the top of my head that has that's been in it. And I know a lot of actors have, but I don't know. Yeah. That's what the universe told me to say just there. So
if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To stay calm in every situation.
That's a new one. Why is that? You still get it worked up? I know I do.
Oh God. If only I could just stay calm, my life would be even better than it is today. Like I get so worked up. Like even something as simple. Oh, one of my memes didn't do good. You know, that starts the wheel spinning, you know, and I get it. It's irrational. I get it. Don't base your inner peace on outward things. Yeah. But, you know, and then, or if I have trouble connecting with a guest before we go live, like Sundays and Tuesday evenings are stressful for me because if it doesn't go off, then the show doesn't go live. And, you know, like there's just all of these things, you know. And yeah, if I could just master the art of staying calm, that would be a goddamn superpower for me.
Welcome to the club, brother. I might have to switch mine up.
No, it's mine.
All yours. Keep it.
Yeah.
If you were stranded on a deserted island and you had one movie and one music artist like compilation, what would they be?
I really don't watch that many movies, but I know Red Hot Chili Peppers has really helped me through some hard times. Yeah, because I know Anthony Kiedis has his story, and it really shines through once you have that level of understanding and you listen to the lyrics and the way that he uses them.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. And like even in my active addiction, I really loved the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But when I came into recovery, you know, if you want to talk about things happen for a reason and the things come into our lives when they're meant to, the lyrics of their music just run rife with healing. You know.
Yeah.
So as for a movie, I'm sorry, but I can't really think of one off the top of my head. I can't watch movies anymore. Like in my recovery, yeah, I can't sit still long enough. Yeah.
Too much to be done.
Well, yeah, like that, or I'm, you know, like I'm on my phone, or I'm, you know, talking to the kid or to Donna or whatever. It's just I can't. Like I put shows on now, except Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders captivated me.
Okay.
That's not really a movie, but if I guess, yeah,
we'll give you a set of all the seasons. There you go.
Yeah. Red Hot Chili Peppers and Peaky Blinders. Set.
Yeah, it's interesting how you talk about that with the Chili Peppers. Is that we can have things that meant one thing and then transform to something totally different. And I know I've had that with quite a few different artists, be it music, movies, TV, whatever it is, literature, that it just takes on a whole new meaning because I've got a whole new set of eyes that are connected to a totally different heart and mind. You know? Yeah. So, all right. One last random question for you here. You can have dinner with any one person, living or not. Who are they?
Donna.
Yeah. And to let people know who Donna is, because we've referred to her, but I know who she is, but the listener may not.
So Donna is my partner. You could call her my wife if you wanted to. We're not married. I don't think we ever will be. We met in active addiction. We spent 8 years together in active addiction. We had a son together. Our son was apprehended. She left for a life on the street. I went into recovery. 8 months later, well, I had 6 months clean living in a sober living house. I got my son back. I was a single father for 1.5 years. And then Donna came skidding in off the streets. And it was terrible. I didn't want her back. The resentment was so deep rooted. It was terrible. We got in a big vicious court battle, drug tests and custody and all that. And as time went on, the dust settled. We had 50-50. We started meeting once a week to do the transition, right? It's your week, it's my week. And we started having supper. And the dust continued to settle. And 6 years after we split, we found our own darkness. We found our own healing, and we reconciled. And we've been together since May of this year. If there's anyone human on this planet that is meant to walk beside me, it's her.
Right on. Right on. Daniel, if you could lend anything for maybe not just the struggling addict or newly recovering, or heck, long-term recovery, but maybe their loved ones, what might be something you'd want to share?
Take care of yourself. If you're a loved one, practice healthy boundaries. Love from a distance. Your happiness matters too. If you're just getting into the rooms, I encourage you not to paint a picture of what you think your life should look like. Expectations are premeditated resentments. They say one day at a time. They say that for good reason. Thinking you know what your life should look like could very easily send you back out when it doesn't look like that. So Take it easy. Be easy on yourself. That's all I got.
The podcast is Hard Knox Talks. Of course, find him on all social media platforms. Daniel Hearn, man, thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
And thank you for the opportunity to share with your community. And I look forward to seeing you more out there in social media land, my friend.
This is the Knockin Doorz Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knockin Doorz Down is all about.
This podcast contains the views and opinions of the Knockin Doorz Down hosts and their guests to the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only. And because each person is sharing their unique perspective, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Privacy is of the utmost importance to us. For those wishing anonymity, people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect confidentiality at the request of certain guests. This website or podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. If you find any errors in any of the content of this podcast or blogs, please send a message through the contact page. This podcast is owned by KDD Media Company.